in listen-only mode.
Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. Hey, we have a new face joining us, Geoff Seiber, president of FranFund. He matches investors with franchises and lenders. So I want to get his take on what's going on. John Reosti, American banker. Lance Sexton, good to see you. Coleman trainer extraordinaire. There's the training certificates. Geoff, you look much better in that picture than the...
In the picture or today? I actually have lost some weight. I was trying to keep that camera lower where you could see that. I don't know.
Geoff and I go way back. Geoff, I'm really happy that you're on. But first, let's get to the news of the day. Right off the top, I want to talk about what happened that we wrote about. Delaney, I think you're going to pop in. What is Chairman Rogers of the House Small Business Committee complaining about, Delaney?
Well, last week he sent a letter to the SBA and the SBA administrator, and he's wanting to know what their return to work policy is going to be. Currently, employees are allowed to work, I believe it's either 2 days a pay period or once a week. And he's wanting to know, when are we going to get our SBA employees back in the office? He's expecting a response from the administrator by August 28th.
I thought he was asking for a response by August 28th.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a difference. John, your voice in Washington, what do you think about this? What is this all about?
Well, for me, it gets to be very inside baseball. I wonder if he is working in league with the mayor of Washington, D.C., who is would like to see all those federal employees come back into town and start buying lunches and everything else.
Support small business. Okay, sign me up for that side of the argument. Go ahead.
But when you look at the
served as a former deputy director of SBA, I find this discussion very interesting because in 2010 at the Little Rock Commercial Loan Servicing Center, we implemented what was known as telework. We had a very robust staff filled with contractors as a result of the Great Recession and plenty of servicing and liquidation activity. We were very, very full. So we had telework back in 2010, and the way telework, I actually did it. Delaney can tell you, I worked at home 3 days a week, and I went to the office on Monday and Friday back in 2010. So telework is not a new concept with SBA. It has been implemented and used before. Now, I'm sure as a result of the pandemic, many more SBA employees took advantage of telework, or maybe they encouraged all to take advantage, but it's not a new concept. We used it back in 2010, 2011, when I was at SBA. And we had many workers that would come in on Monday and Friday, and Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of each week they work from home.
Let's go to the stats, John. Much ado about nothing. Is SBA falling off productivity, or what's going on a number basis?
Well, I just looked at them, and it's interesting. In the next few days, I don't know exactly when, but it would seem before the end of this month, they're going to surpass the number of loans that they did last year. They're well over 47,000, and I think the total last year was just under 47,700, so 47,700. And they're on track to surpass that this month. And maybe Lance and Geoff, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me like September is one of, if not the busiest months of every fiscal year for SBA.
Yeah,
so you can assume that they're going to be significantly higher in terms of number of loans. I don't think it'll be a record, but they'll be significantly higher than last year. The dollar volume may be in line with last year or a little below, but the reason for that is, and we talked about this last week, the average loan size is more than $60,000 below what it was last year. So they're making more loans and they're making smaller loans.
What about servicing and liquidation issues, Lance? I know that's what you're primarily dealing with. How's SBA's response to you?
I'm going to be honest with you, Bob. SBA is very capable of taking care of all their activities with some people working what I call teleworking. I did it for several years as deputy director. I was in the office a little more than I required my employees to be, but most of their activities can easily be done from home. And that's why I'm just so curious about why this is such a huge issue, because again, SBA employees working part of their work schedule from home is definitely not a new idea and was not created as a result of the pandemic. It existed before that.
Well, John, I think you're right. There's stuff going on inside baseball behind the scenes we are not privy to, and there's frustration. The bottom line is there's frustration on the Hill the way this program's being administered by the administration.
Well, and the thing, Bob, I'm sorry, John. The thing I would mention is,
I guess, Bob, I could tell you, Roger Williams, Congressman Williams, is a friend of FranFund. I guess I could say,
hop in.
He's a Texas congressman. His district is actually adjoining district to where we are, and Bob, I think I'm a big TCU supporter, and so Roger's a TCU grad and wears his purple proudly all around DC. But he's just a no nonsense guy. I love Roger in the fact that he has been a congressman. He's a car dealer, which is a franchise relationship, and having someone in Congress that's not only on the small business committee, the head of small business, but also understands franchising has been really kind of a nice situation for us. And right when he got that appointment, was actually the Big 12 championship game, to be honest. He came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm going to get this appointment and I can now help you. What do you need?" Awesome. And I was like, we need responsiveness and, streamlined understanding of things and just the basic stuff we always need. And he said, well, I'll get on that. Now he's been, I think that knowing him as I do philosophically, it's that we can be good if we're out of the office, but can we be better if we're in? I don't think it's a thing of he is doubting the work that is being done. I don't think that he's doubting the quality and the volume, but can it be more and can it be better? Those are the type of questions he always asks when we're in conversation, is not how do we do it adequately, but how do we do it better?
Jeff, have you talked to Congressman Williams about the relationship of SBA and the Hill?
Oh, absolutely. He's been contentious in his hearings. I'm active. I'm in the IFA as well, and the International Franchise Association, and our GR group keeps sending me video clips of hey, this is your guy, what he did yesterday on the Hill. So he's very passionate towards small business. I mean, I don't know that we've had anyone in that seat, either Republican or Democratic Party, as passionate to small business as Congressman Williams is. And I'm not just sucking up to a guy that I know. I'm just telling you that he's been pretty straightforward and a straight shooter on that for a lot of years.
Well, let me ask you the blunt question. What is his main criticism of SBA then?
I think he wants to make it easier to get money out.
Okay.
How can the banks understand things where that they know what to do and not what to do? He doesn't like gotchas. He doesn't like those sort of things. He wants everybody to have the same type of understandings and that we can get more money. Hey, Bob, you would love him. You should have a conversation with him. He is the guy that wants to push money to Main Street. So, and he is just, and he has that kind of Texas wildcatter mentality of don't tell me the solution is not the problem. Let's go.
John, please follow up. What do you want to ask Jeff about Congressman?
I was going to say, and I'm going to look into this now that this issue has come up with the letter. I think it's important if this is going to go anywhere and be more than just an issue that's important to the chairman. And I don't mean to minimize that, but if it's going to go anywhere, it has to go somewhere in conjunction with the whole Congress. The SBA can't be singled out as an agency where everybody is forced to work in the office or work, more in the office, and the Department of Labor and the Department of the Treasury and the other parts of government that are overseen by other members of Congress are allowed to have different policies and different standards in place. It's got to be sort of a whole of government thing. And right now it seems to me that the whole of government bias is towards remote work.
John, I think you're going to see a little bit more of that coming from other areas of government too. It was on our IFA legislative agenda call last week or the week before, that they were seeing a push towards getting government workers back to work in DC and back into the offices. I don't think it's just an SBA.
Okay.
I don't think you're going to see that across the board, especially from the House, on trying to get those office buildings back with people in them. And you're seeing it from the mayor too. I'm sure you brought that up earlier, that the mayor's making a big push on that too. I think that, it's been a thing with us. Just our IFA offices are in DC as well, and they're starting to push to bring those people back. K Street, the lobbyists have been pretty much not there, and the government people aren't there. And you walk by all those buildings and there's nobody in them. It's one of those things of when is it time to redo that? I don't think this is a push just from Congressman Williams towards the SBA. It's just one of the groups on the list, and that would be his list. So I think you're going to see that across the board more on trying to get people back into the offices in DC.
Excellent. Well, Geoff, we didn't bring you on to talk about this, but you're more of an expert than any of us, so I appreciate you jumping in. That's awesome.
It's just you end up in the political thing between the IFA and all the balls that we kind of have to keep in.
IFA. What is IFA? What does IFA do? Give me a definition.
International Franchise Association, and it is the lobbying group and the organizational group for all the franchising, whether it's franchisees, franchisors, or suppliers.
What is the IFA? What do you think about I'm sorry. Finish.
They lobby for the interest of the business model itself, and how to, and for regulation as to what the regulation should be, explaining how the industry works. And it's quite honestly, there's some pretty big issues out there right now with the National Labor Relations Board and some of the unionization that wants to take place on how that franchisee-franchisor relationship is being monitored. I'm sure if you may have seen some of that. It flares up on the bigger picture all the time, but man, it is still sizzling it down underneath. So there's a lot going on in that area.
Geoff, I asked you on to talk about August 1 changes to the SOP, how that affects franchise, the elimination of the franchise registry. How's that affecting the franchise industry? I also heard a rumor that may be coming back. Go ahead. Give me all your thoughts.
To be honest, I think Congressman Williams would like to see it come back.
Okay.
He's been a proponent of that, and he and I differ slightly there. The affiliation rule, if you get rid of the affiliation rule, the logic tree takes you to the point that you don't need the franchise registry. That I understand how they got there. I understand which is not normal for me to understand how they get there. But if you're going to get rid of and not modify the affiliation rule, then the franchise registry really becomes somewhat meaningless. But it's been perhaps falsely a thing to say, if they're on the franchise registry, I'm good as a bank. Yeah. Well, that's not necessarily the case either. I mean, you could still, the franchise registry had no power to say you're good. I mean, it could still come in and go, you're not. So, yeah. But it was a way that banks could check things off and move forward. I had a competitor on a panel back several months ago that when this first came out that made the statement, and I have to agree with them in it, is that, we knew how to do franchise lending before there was an SBA registry, and we'll know how to do franchise lending now that there's not one. It's just that we have to pay different attention or more attention to certain things. And I think that's probably, the way that we at FranFund feel, in that, we feel like we're very well versed in it. We're going to make sure that our lenders that we're working with are well versed in it, and make sure that we're not teeing things up that are going to be in conflict with that, with those rules. Now, and it gives us a lot more flexibility. It gives the bank and the banks a lot more flexibility in what they're looking at, and without having to worry about, did they check that small thing over there on the side of the franchise registry, and do they have that approved? There's a lot more flexibility, although there's, and really no less responsibility for the bank at the end of the day. So
That's a good line.
now,
Good line.
is there somewhere in between? Maybe. And heck, would I have changed it? No. Everybody was comfortable with it, and it was working. But again, when they changed the affiliation rule, it kind of became unnecessary. So we like it, especially for new brands that are coming on, that haven't been through the process, that need to be vetted, that need those type of things. The franchise registry is invaluable, I think, for a lender. As modifications are made to FDDs that have already been approved, what we're doing is with the brands, and we've already worked with well over 350 brands this year. So we work with a lot of brands, and as they're starting to go through their changes or modifications throughout the course of the year with their FDDs, we make sure that our banks are, here's what's going on, here's the things you need to look at.
Go ahead, John.
And when all this comes up for renewal, which is typically, at the end of Q1 in 2024, there will be again, another layer of information that needs to be shared. But I think, framed up properly, that we can work without it. I mean,
You are working without it. Yeah. Go ahead, John.
I wanted to ask you a question to Geoff. I remember there was a hearing where someone brought up the point that there was just a very small number of, maybe even one, SBA employee working on maintaining the franchise registry, and the implication of that was that maybe it was a little behind, that it wasn't getting the attention that it deserves. It wasn't being updated enough to reflect what's going on in the franchise world. I wonder if that was if that was an issue for you, that it was tough for some of the newer franchises to get on that list, and that there were franchises that should have been on it that hadn't quite gotten on yet.
John, I agree with that. It was never well funded or never well staffed, that relationship. And there's some outside companies that had taken over part of that, some private companies that did some things there to frame some things up, which provided a great service to try to help that. But it was we would have loans with a brand that hadn't been approved, that we're sitting and waiting. And those couple of people that were in that office, they were on speed dial. So it was like, what can you tell me about this? What can you tell me about that? And you're trying to work your way through so that your lenders can feel comfortable that because it was a must. You had to have it, especially in the bank credit, the guidelines that the banks had. So the board of directors saying you got to have this. Well, we couldn't close the loan, even though anyone that looked at it knew it was fine. So this does take that frustration out of the equation. As I said, I think that this will work out over time, and maybe it just takes a year. I don't think it works out over time, over a decade, but I think we'll have that transition of what we're going to go through as all of the renewals come out, and then the best way to what are the main things that they're going to want to enforce. I think if you look at again, and I'm going to talk about our congressman here. He's not looking at, he doesn't want gotchas. He doesn't want like good manipulation. He wants straightforward type things. And I think that's where that committee is headed, is to just make it doesn't have to be overly complex. And if that deal is too overly complex, kick it. Tell them they got to get it. Tell that brand they got to get more in a more simplified way. I mean, it's not a one-way street. There are things that most brands can do to clarify issues that may come up. So, and we've had them do that in the past. And we've had
Geoff,
brands that came back in.
Geoff, thank you so much. That was awesome. Real quick, Lance, 30 seconds. What are you talking about Wednesday? Why do people have to sign up?
Well, we're going to talk about how to clean up your PPP loan portfolio. And for many of you, you believe PPP is over, but for many of us, it's not completely over. And we're still trying to find our way through working all the PPP loans out of our life. And so we're going to spend some time. I'm going to allow plenty of question and answers because I don't have 100% of the answers to cleaning up your PPP portfolio, but trust me, I've experienced a number of questions and challenges. And it's like I said last time, my friend Jim Walters and I think we wake up every day and there's a new PPP challenge that faces us. So we're going to help you.
Send me an email to bob@colemanreport.com. I'll take care of you. John, thank you so much for joining us. I'm looking forward to what you're talking about. Geoff, let's have you on again.
Thanks, Bob.
I love
Enjoyed
the
it.
YouTube.
Enjoyed catching up.
That was awesome.
Hopefully you're staying dry.
Oh, we're fine. Thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great day.